So here's something I see all the time. A business owner decides they need more customers, so they go find a marketing agency. The agency says, great, let's do some SEO and run some ads. They sign a contract. 6 months later, the business has spent 20, 30 grand and has no idea if anything actually worked. And the worst part really is nobody ever asked the right questions before they started doing the work. No one looked at the business's financials. No one dug into their products to see what's profitable. Nobody asked what their conversion rate looked like or where leads were already coming from. They just heard a problem and everyone just started doing stuff. That is not a growth strategy. That's just activity. So, what I want to talk to you about today is what a real business growth strategy process actually looks like, because it's so much more than a kickoff call on a slide deck. My name is Adam Silverman, and I'm the founder of Muletown Digital, digital marketing and growth strategy agency based outside of Nashville. And one of the things we built here that I'm really proud of is a full-on business growth strategy process that we take our clients through typically before we ever touch an ad campaign or start building a new website. The reason I want to talk about this today is that I think a lot of business owners tend to operate in the dark. They have like a vague sense that they need more marketing, but they don't actually know where the leaks in the business are. They don't know which products are making money and which ones aren't. They don't know which channels are working and which ones are just blowing money. They're just basically making guesses. And if you're in that boat, this video might shed some light onto why you're stuck there. Because when you don't know all of those things mentioned above, any marketing is basically just one humongous educated guess. So what we built is a process that forces you to look at the whole business, the financials, product, market, marketing, before we start making recommendations. And what we deliver on the other end of this process is a prioritized blueprint that tells you exactly what to work on, in what order you should work on those things, and why it's in that order. If you're a business owner who's ever felt like you're just spinning your wheels in place, trying different things, hiring different companies, but you really never feel like you have a clear direction, this should be helpful to you. So everything starts with questionnaires. It's not a short questionnaire. Before we sit down with a client to go through this, we send a pretty in-depth questionnaire. And I want to be honest with you, it's not a 5-minute fill it out form. It takes thought, because what we're effectively asking people to do before we ever get in a room together is start articulating the things that they have never been able to really put on paper. Things like, what are your actual revenue goals? What do your margins look like? Where do your best customers come from? What's worked in marketing before and what didn't work? Who's your ideal customer? And what problem is it that you actually are solving for them? The reason why we do all this work up front is that it forces clarity. A lot of business owners, when they sit down to answer these questions, realize they don't actually know the answers. And that's valuable information, because if you don't know what your typical customer is worth, how are you going to make decisions about how much to spend in order to acquire that customer? Again, it becomes a guess, an uneducated guess, and one that will burn you later down the road. So before anything starts, we basically need to create that foundation or understand your foundation. And the questionnaire really is how we build that out. Then we go into a day long or a half day long, depending on the needs, strategy session, full on in the business. After that questionnaire, we get together, we do our session, and I want to kind of walk you through what it looks like, because it's not just a brainstorming session. It's really structured to be a diagnostic. And in that diagnostic, we're going to typically work through 3 major pillars. The first is financials. We need to look at your money in and your money out. We need to look at your P&L. We need to look at your trends, your profitability. We want to understand, is this business healthy and it needs to grow? Or is there a margin problem that marketing is just going to make worse, right? Because if you're losing money on every sale, running more ads just makes that problem worse a lot quicker. It's gasoline on, embers. You can't market your way out of a broken business model. The second thing that we dive into is your products and services. We really dig into what you're selling, how you're selling it, and who you're selling it to. We look at what products or services are driving the most revenue, what has the best margins, which ones your best customers are actually buying. Sometimes we find that a business is spending a lot of energy on the thing that makes them the least amount of money, and nobody ever really took the time to think through that or to notice it. We also then dig into your positioning here. How are you communicating your value? How does your potential customer understand what you do? Why does it matter? Positioning problems are typical, they're really common, and they show up all over the place on your website, in your ads, in your sales team, in everything you do. These problems will surface. So we got to dig into it. And then the third and final pillar is marketing. That's really where we specialize as a company. We look at everything, what the channels you've tried, what were the outcomes, what did your analytics data show? Where did your leads come from? Are they dropping off? We basically want to see the whole marketing picture so we can identify where our real opportunities physically exist. Most businesses we talk to typically have tried a handful of things. They've usually tried search engine optimization. They've posted on social media. They've run some ads somewhere, but they've never looked at all the things together and gone, the data is saying that we need to run more ads in this place, or we need to take money from here and put it here. That's really what we're doing inside of this session. And then the third part of the engagement is what we call the ICE framework, and it tells us how we decide what to work on. So when we've done our diagnostic, we're going to have a list of opportunities. And this is where a lot of strategy processes just break apart because you end up with a list of 20 things you could do, but you don't have a clear sense of what to do first and what things stack on other things. So we use the ICE framework, which is not our framework, by the way, but we use it to solve this problem. ICE is impact, confidence, and effort for ICE. Here's how it works. Every initiative on that list gets scored in 3 dimensions on a typically 1 to 10 scale. Impact is, if this works, how much does it move the needle? Is it a 5% improvement or a 500%? That's your I for in impact. C is confidence. How confident are we that we actually get this to work? Is this based on data and experience, or is it a guess? Is our confidence lever? And then our effort level. How hard is it going to be to execute? Here's a key thing. Effort is scored in reverse. A project that's easy to do gets a high effort score. A project that takes 6 months gets a low one, because that's how it all gets factored in. So what we do is multiply these scores together and you end up with an ICE score, and that scoring helps you work down your list in an appropriate order. So what it does is it allows everyone to get their opinions out. Nobody's fighting for the favorite idea in your team. The data makes the decision. The project that's high impact, high confidence, and easy to execute always surfaces to the top. And you'd be surprised how many times those projects get ignored because they're not as exciting as other things on the list, but they're so important to finish. We actually hand clients at the end this spreadsheet, and it becomes a living document for them. Every time a new idea comes up, it's a team member, a vendor, a podcast, whatever, it goes in that sheet, and then it gets evaluated in the same way that everything else gets evaluated. And what you're doing is creating a discipline that compounds over time to tell you what to do next and why. So in the very end, you're going to get our growth blueprint. The session gets done. We don't just send you a recording of the call and go, thanks for being here. We deliver a full-on documented blueprint. It's a comprehensive doc that basically runs you through everything that we found in that meeting day. It'll have an assessment of what we see in the business, where your opportunities are, where your risks are, what we think maybe needs to happen first, second, and third. And it maps all of it back to the ICE scores so you guys understand why we are prioritizing the internal projects the way that we're prioritizing them. So I want to give you a real world example. This is a software company, so the names will be taken out, but the strategic work is what we've been able to accomplish. So we worked with this business to business software company, and they had been focused mostly on developing this product for multiple years. They have a solid platform, real customers, but not super profitable and not growing in the way that they needed. So they hired us to come in and basically run through this exact process with them from start to finish. When we got under the hood, we found some things. First, we had a specific partnership channel that was generating a couple hundred users a month, but we weren't doing anything to activate those users. Like a third of them were literally setting up accounts, and the other 2/3 just signed up and they were gone. So that's a huge opportunity to double or triple the business without having to go out and acquire a whole new set of new clients. So the second thing we found was that the way they communicated the value of their product was really based around features. And here's what you get at each tier. Here's what you get at this next tier. But the customers weren't buying features. They were trying to buy a reduction of risk in their business. So the whole point of the product was basically to help them avoid costly mistakes. So once we reframed the positioning around the psychological reality, showing users their risk level and giving them a path to lower it, the entire upgrade logic changed, and they were able to almost triple the amount of active customers they had from just making that one change. Third, their pricing architecture was not guiding the user's behavior. The middle tier kind of took out the top tier's value. There wasn't really a reason to upgrade, but with a very small structural change, the revenue impact was really significant. So in the end, we delivered this document to them. We covered all the data, the infrastructure, their funnels, their monetization strategy, pricing architecture. And then we gave them that prioritized ICE list that in the way that we saw it and the way that we determined that things needed to go and in what order. That's what this growth blueprint process produces. It's not a set of like random recommendations like you should do some SEO. It's actually a plan. So from there, the growth blueprint is designed to be a living doc. It's not something that you're shoving in a drawer. It's not a brand guide. It's not a fancy PDF. What we've found is most clients want to keep rolling with us after we deliver this and the session's done, because now they actually know what they're supposed to be working on and they need help thinking through it and executing it. That might look like us coming in as a fractional growth advisor, reviewing experiments, analyzing data, refining those plans as they come in. It might mean bringing our entire team in to handle execution work, things like landing pages, email campaigns, email capture, SEO, paid media. We end up kind of coming in at a level that makes sense for the business. Here's what's different. By the time we start the work, we're not guessing. We're not running ads at a landing page we've never seen. We're not doing SEO for a website that has a conversion issue. Every tactical dollar you spend is actually pointed at something the strategy identified as a very literal opportunity. That's the difference between just doing marketing exercises versus actually getting marketing right for your business. So let me bring this together pretty quick. What we're describing is a 3-part process: a questionnaire, a structured, a specific, designed to build a baseline before we ever talk. It moves there into a full day or half day strategy session where we work through your financials, your products, your services, your marketing picture. And it ends with a growth blueprint, a written document with a set of prioritized recommendations, all built on the ICE framework. So you and your team know what it is that they need to work on next. The reason this matters is that most businesses that struggle with marketing don't really have a problem with their marketing. They do have a strategic problem. They're executing a bunch of tactics with no picture of the business and where money's being spent and what's working and not working. So it's a blind execution of a bunch of tactics, and that lands you in the painful spot. The process that fixes it is to give you visibility, clarity, and a prioritized plan before we start spending money on execution. And that's true whether you work with us or you don't, by the way. If you're a business owner that's like, I'm running in circles here, I genuinely encourage you to go through some version of this process, even if it's just sitting down with your own team and answering hard questions together. I cannot recommend it enough. But if you want help to really do this the right way with a team that's done it across a whole bunch of different businesses and industries, we are more than happy to connect with you and talk and help you guys develop a growth plan blueprint that, works for your business. If this has resonated with you at all, the next step you can take with us is to book a call in with our team. We'll have a quick chat about your business, where you are, what your goals look like, and whether growth strategy, makes sense for where you are and what you're trying to do. We don't do fancy pitches and, forced sales. It's just a genuine conversation to see if you guys have a problem that we can solve. You can book that directly at muletowndigital.com/connect. And I will do my best to put the link to that in this video and in the comments. If you found this helpful, you also can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put out content like this pretty regularly, all around helping small business owners get smarter when it comes to their business development. And if you know somebody who's been stuck spinning their wheels trying to figure this out, please take the time to share it with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear in order to help them move forward. I am out here to break misconceptions that occur. Agencies are notorious for just randomly doing tactical work and not doing the thinking. And so Muletown Digital has really tried to do that differently and to be thinkers and strategists first and doers and technicians second. So if that sounds like something you need, hit us up. We'll look forward to connecting with you. Thanks.